think that looks good.
Yeah, I like.
Fix the hair a little bit? Cool. What do you want to say to the world?
I'm a girl boss. I don't stop at anything. I'm persistent. I'm passionate. And I think I was meant here for changing individuals that need to accept disabilities.
So, I want to talk a little bit about how you lived with muscular dystrophy prior to the stroke.
Cool.
What was your life like before the stroke?
So I was independent. I was living in Tampa by myself with a friend. And I was so happy because I was living independent. And I would go out. And I was happy, about college, the university. I was going to classes every day, passionate, independent, and I always dreamed of being independent with an apartment. And I lived it 2 years ago, and I was happy. And the stroke, completely killed my independence. So
basically, a stroke is an interruption of the blood flow. And when you interrupt the blood flow, the tissues don't get the oxygen that it needs to survive, and that part of her brain died off. Being the nurse, I actually diagnosed the stroke. So basically, I was leaving to go to work, and Courtney made a little gurgling sound, which was not typical for her. So I looked over at her and was trying to get her to answer me, and she couldn't answer me. So at that point, I also saw that the right side of her body was not moving. So I enacted the stroke protocol at the hospital that I work at. And then the stroke team came, and then I kind of directed them to do everything else, since I know everything else of what to do. So I basically, instead of them kind of telling me everything, I was telling them everything. And then once we did the CAT scan and they told me she had had a stroke, I asked them to give her a TPA, which is a clot dissolving medication that they give for within 3 to 6 hours of a new stroke. And what that job is supposed to do is go in there and basically, like Pac-Man, eat up all the blood clot. But her clot was so large that it started eating the clot, but it needed help to get the remainder of the clot removed. So I called my docs and told them to get to work now, and they did. And then she went to the interventional radiology place where they put a catheter in her groin, went up and sucked the clot out of her brain, which was really cool. And then from there she went to the ICU for a week. So actually what my docs were able to do is basically show me the before and after pictures, which are amazing. The before picture, basically if you picture a tree with all the branches, all the branches on the top were completely missing on Courtney's picture. Then after they removed the clot, you could see the branches starting to come back into the brain. Yeah, that was quite interesting.
You weren't able to speak. Were you sure if you'd ever be able to again?
Yeah, because I didn't picture life not talking. It was my, power, because my limbs don't work. I'm in a wheelchair, but I'm an advocate for myself, through college, high school. So I'm like, I gotta talk again.
And 3 months after the stroke, we went to visit the neurologist, and he put Courtney's CAT scan up on the screen, and basically the whole left side of her brain was what they call gray out. It was just all grayed out, which was so shocking to me. And I'm really glad I saw it then as opposed to when I originally saw it, because I think that if on the original part of me seeing it, I don't think I would have pushed her as hard as I did.
And not speaking for a month was so challenging. And I tell people that, but they don't know, like, not talking, because it's an everyday thing, you know, talking. And I didn't talk, so.
Well, we used letters.
Yep.
What was that? O-R-E.
Yeah.
O-R-E for like a week, and we couldn't figure out what O-R-E meant, and all she wanted to do was just get rotated in the bed.
It's a big adjustment to your life.
Mm-hmm. It impacts every aspect of your life.
My mental health was great for
pre-stroke,
but now it's, you know,
you have a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, a lot of anxiety, depression, not knowing what to do. My left brain died, so my right brain is working. But I was a left-brainer thinker pre-stroke, so I have to learn that.
When you say it's tough to speak, is the toughest thing about speaking forming the words or choosing the words?
Choosing the words, because they're not in my head, so I have to think about them and challenge myself to pronounce it normally, because I hate pronouncing things wrong.
Would you describe yourself as a happy person?
Yeah.
What makes you so happy?
I have great gratitude for my life after living the stroke. I have great family, great friends.
Do you ever feel like you're being judged?
Yeah.
What's that like?
Now that I'm 23, I don't care about judging. Back in middle school, oh my god, I care about judging, but now I have more challenge to face than judgmental people, so.
What is the biggest challenge you had to face after the stroke?
Not talking, because actually the only A that I got in college was my public speaking. So that not talking changed me, and I was continuously learning.
What was it like to have that month where you were in your own mind, unable to express yourself?
Challenging. I watched TV, would make fun of like the doctors in my head, or I was praying every night. I watched Netflix. It was hard because in my head I was normal, but in the real world I was not.
Did people around you understand that you could still perceive everything?
It took a week that they understood me thinking normally, because I would look at the doctors and I would yes or no,
What do you think is the most important thing for the world to understand about your sister?
Fact about just not to underestimate her. I guess the way of wording it was wrong, but many people think after a stroke, she only has half of a brain, which means she's only capable of doing half things normal people can. No, she has a whole creative way of thinking now. muscular dystrophy, just because, you know, she's not able to get up and go play basketball or do that, doesn't mean that she's not able to get online on a computer and do some things, or like, you know, like do other necessarily like communicative things that don't really require physical activity that she might excel in compared to people who excel in physical activity.
What would you say is the biggest misconception people have about your sister?
We have like misconceptions, like people just don't really. People are just. We live in a current world where people are too worried about offending someone to really ask what's going on, or things like that. So the misconception is that she'll be offended if you ask, like, oh, what's, like, you know, like, there's nothing technically wrong with her. She's still a perfectly fine human being, but like, you know, like you can walk up to her and ask, like, you know, like, what happened, or like, you know, like what were you born with, things like that. And it's not going to upset a human being. Like it's just like asking someone who, you know, can't like write properly or something like that, you know, like, why can't you write properly, or stuff like that.
And I
also have the misconception that they don't realize that when asking it, you know, like if asked in the proper way, it gives her an ability to exercise her voice and tell people, you know, like, this is what it's like to have my condition, this is what it's like for this. So like you right now coming here and interviewing her is, you put aside the misconceptions that most people have. Even like, you know, like a stroke victim going to speak with a stroke victim, most people think, oh, well, it's a stroke victim, they're just lying in bed unconscious, they're a vegetable. It's not necessarily true. It's a misconception, you know. Or just like, oh, she doesn't want to get out of bed because she's lazy. That's not true. She could have a very overwhelming day. She's, you know, more reactive to stimuli. People like misconceptions just all around ailments of mental health disorders and physical health disorders, and that, you know, we got to stop being so afraid of it and more or less become talkative about it. Because if somebody knows what's going on with her, then they'll know, okay, in this situation this might be too much for her. But if you're afraid to ask, you're never going to know what is the perfect barrier.
Before I went to ADC, Jake spray painted.
I remember it going a little different.
Right.
I remember it going more like, I want my scooter to match my outfit for EDC. I have my scooter, I don't want it to just look regular. I'm going to a rave, I want to stand out. If people are already going to look, might as well give them something to look at.
You two are best friends?
Yeah.
On some days.
On some days.
What are the other days like?
We're just forced to be siblings.
We think
Completely differently.
Yeah.
How so?
She's more of a laid back, this type of thing. I'm more of like my way or the highway. And then she had the stroke, and then it switched, and now she's the same as me. So our conflict of interest happens to be a lot more often now than it used to be.
Yeah.
Because now she wants to do something, and she gets her mind set and starts obsessing. And I'm over here like, well, this is my plan that I've already had in place. We're not changing it. And then she's like, okay, well, you know what, we'll go our separate ways for a little bit.
What has her strength and persistence taught you?
Strength and persistence taught me. I don't know. I've always rooted for the underdog, so I knew she was going to make it, and I knew she was going to get through this, and I knew we were going to have a lot of work ahead of us, but I knew with the right prodding and pushing, she was going to do it. She's a fighter, so I knew she wasn't going to give up, but she just needed the support to not give up sometimes.
If you could send out one message to the whole world, what would it be?
Love yourself and be positive, because there's hope everywhere.
How did you find hope in your situation?
Through my friends and my family, books, going on, forgetting about my right hand not moving, adventure, to not think about your disability, and be proactive.
Is there anything else you want the world to know about you?
Be positive and don't judge any people, because you don't know their story.